We're about to get started, folks, so maybe we could have folks take their seats or close the door or whatever. Good afternoon. We're going to have the roll call and the posting of the agenda. Are we ready to go? Yeah. And then we'll do the flag salute.
Member Basua? Here. Member Madrigal?
Here.
And Chair Ramirez?
Here.
Chair, the agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall kiosk on Tuesday, October 15th.
Thank you very much. So let's rise and make the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Madrigal, would you lead us, please?
Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's something new. I don't know what that is. Oh, is that a voter? Yeah. We have a new voting thingy? Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, thanks.
So those three and then these two.
All right. Thank you very much. First item is consent agenda, approval of the minutes of September 24th, 2019.
Public comment.
I apologize. Yes. Getting ahead of myself here. Okay. Item B, public comments for items not on the agenda. And let's see, we have first speaker is Roy Jarrett. Mr. Jarrett, to be followed by Cheryl Cooley. And then Carolyn oh, no, that's a different item. Thank you. I'm sorry. Those are different items. Okay. Thank you. Yes,
Well,
please.
Thank you for hearing me out here as members of the
It's your
committee.
right. You don't have to thank us. It's your right. Thank you.
But as mentioned, my name's Roy Jarrett. I'm the contract representative for Jehovah's Witnesses assemblies here, working through in Oxnard, and I know there's been a significant change. And, you know, we did have contracts that we received notice that they were canceled, but our concern was the timing of all of this. We have 11,000 of our assembly attendees that would come through, and looking at the timing, we were just concerned about that issue, that we could work that out in the spring. And so that's what I wanted to mention, because we have things that we have to really get organized if we're going to work this in the springtime here. We have to book some flights of people coming in. We have to let people know, you know, the dates. I know there's a timeline that you're faced with too, but I would hate to get into a situation come January and then we say, well, we can't do this. And the comment was made, well, if we'd only known this in October, maybe we could have. So that's the reason why I came in to say, yes, there's timelines that we have. If there's something that we can work out, you know, possibly around this time, if any decisions have been made, you know, that we could work so that we could keep our assemblies here. We certainly want to be here. We look forward to that. We have deposits on hand with the city that are still there. And so what we can work out, if we can and do that, we would certainly appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. So our next speaker is Cheryl Cooley. I hope I'm saying that right. Ms. Cooley, I know you.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm Cheryl Cooley with the Oxnard Musical Youth Theater. I'd actually like to start so that you can hear a little taste of what it is that we do at the Oxnard Musical Youth Theater. This was actually our very first practice with 70 students and 150 parents in attendance at the lobby registering their kiddos for our musical productions this season. So I was most impressed with their pitch. Notice they weren't squealing or squawking. They're pretty incredible after the 5 years that we've been working with them, the 14 seasons, and they're just getting better. I'm here for awareness, also for the timing that was aforementioned, but really awareness. I'm here to ensure your awareness of the incredible program that we offer through the Oxnard Musical Youth Theater Corporation, and I'm hoping to gain awareness of your decision process regarding our current residency at the OPAC so that I can take information back to my executive board, our cast, my 9 contracted employees. I've got dozens of volunteers and 2,800 prospective audience members anticipating our 6 upcoming performances in January. Despite all the meetings that took place regarding the closure at the PAC in May and June, Oh My Theater already invested thousands of dollars into our fall-winter production of Disney's Frozen Jr. With no success in trying to relocate with short notice, our only remaining hope is to immediately secure a contract with whomever's in charge at the OPAC at the start of the new year. Considering our Tech Week and performances are slated to begin the 2nd week of January, you can imagine our grave concerns weighing on our staff, volunteer team, cast members, and families who have already invested thousands of combined hours to this season. We're ready to advertise our venue and book field trips for local schools to attend immediately. And I know my time's running out, so just the same concerns.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Carolyn Mullen to be followed by Darlene Miller Gonzalez.
Hello, city staff and city council members. Thank you so much for giving me time to speak. So last time we were here, we talked about having a feedback session with the community about what the community would like to see at the Performing Arts Center in terms of community programming. So we have synthesized that information, and I have it here for your review. And the nonprofit is committed to ensuring that we meet as much of that list as we can. We're excited about 2020 and what we can do for the nonprofits and everyone who uses our facility. I also wanted to invite you all to our upcoming events. We have Sugar Skulls, which is a Day of the Dead musical, November 2nd. We also have some free programming taking place, or programs that we are providing free space for. That includes Gem and Mineral. These are long-standing agreements that we had as part of our rental credit program, and we're excited that we're able to honor that. So I'll leave all of this information here. We have Intocables and Joshua Bell. It's the 25th anniversary celebration with New West Symphony and Ventura Music Festival. We have Mariachi Christmas returning this year, the Nutcracker, both from Footworks Ballet and Ventura County Ballet. We're very excited about that. So I'll leave all these flyers here. And I only have 50 seconds, but I wanted to say everything that we've done in 3 months, which is not going to happen in now 46 seconds. But, you know, we had a pretty long haul in terms of what we had to do to restructure and streamline and just bring us up to speed to run the PAC as a fully blown nonprofit without the city staff that we had previously. But I'm excited to report that we've been able to cut our finances or our expenses in half. We've been able to produce the same amount of programming that we were able to do as a city hybrid facility. We had Cola Boy, he just played Coachella. We were excited to do that free function. We had Leela Downs, which was another free function, about 600 attendees, and that was an amazing collaborative effort with MyCop. And the Oaxacan community took the stage for the very first time, and we were very honored to be able to present that. Just lots of exciting things, and I'll probably be back next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Darlene Miller Gonzalez, to be followed by Jack Villa, and Jack is the last speaker. Yes.
Do we have anybody who can help? I would like to say this in Spanish.
I don't believe I have an interpreter now, but you can interpret yourself. Or I can interpret you.
Okay. Quisiera decirles de que ha visto muchos cortos de la ciudad, de que han cortado bastantes como en el parque, que no hay gente que están limpiando los parques y están.
If I'm going to interpret you, I'll stop you. Is that okay? Is that cool? I'm here about the cuts to services, including what's going on in the parks.
Sí. Y han estado muy abandonados los parques. Y,
the parks look abandoned.
Y hay mucha basura y están los baños cerrados. Donde yo vivo está el parque que se llama el West Parque, cruzar la calle.
The West Park, and I missed some of what you said.
En el parque enfrente del auditorium.
You know what, Darlene, excuse me, why don't we do this? You say it in Spanish and then repeat it in English.
Okay. Well, I've been, you know, I've been going around the parks around our area, and the parks have been abandoned because of, you know, we have been doing some cutbacks. And I understand, but we still, as a community, we still need to all work together and to clean these parks because there's a lot of like people who are smoking, that there's dry leaves and it can cause a fire. And a lot of the trash, it looks abandoned. And a lot of people, when they walk around, they're afraid because the parks are really run down. The bathrooms are closed. So if people want to do the restroom, they do it outside. And so, it's like, why have a park and if you don't have the restrooms open? And so we need to develop a program. I talked around, 7 years ago, I came by and I talked to the mayor and I talked to you regarding that what we could do. That I was at the forest for a year and a half and I was a volunteer and I cleaned up the parks for a year and a half because the forest doesn't have money to be able to have a crew that they can clean. So we all volunteered. Residents and everybody kept that park clean, but we charged $5. It was a nonprofit organization, and I mentioned to the council that why don't we start something to take care of our parks, because our parks are really getting run down, and especially being a homeowner, you kind of start looking around and you start seeing that your property is going down value. So we all need to kind of all work together. We can do this adopt the park. I have pictures of how bad the park has been. I think we picked up, we cleaned up, and we kind of had 100 bags that we cleaned, and we still need to clean more. Here are the pictures.
Yeah.
No liners in the trash bags. It's really bad. We really need to.
What park is that?
This is the one. It's West Park, across the street from the pack. I'm not. I know we don't have enough. People to clean maintenance, because I call them up every time I have all these bags for them to pick up. But we all need to put something together. That we have 963 nonprofit organizations. We have banks. We have a lot of businesses. So
Thank you very much.
if you can help us out in putting something together.
Thank you. Our next speaker and last speaker is Jack Villa.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, it's perfect timing. Darlene came and talked about the trash at West Park. My name is Jack Villa. I'm from Hobson Park East. And 2 weekends ago, we had a cleanup, and we had 35 to 40 people helping us clean Casa de Vida and some students from schools and the local neighborhood. And it was very successful. We had, from what ER Environmental Resources told us, we had 3/4 of a ton that we picked up as far as trash, and that's just the trash on the ground, and leaves and branches and fronds from the palm trees, and so we plan to do it again in the next month. So Darlene, if you want to help, I'll get the word out. We'll do it again. We have other groups that want to help. When they heard about the cleaning of the pack and the park, and so look for that to happen again. In fact, we're going to do it. We also let me go back. In November, we plan to have a book fair in the park, working with the nonprofit organizations and the school district, and also in December we plan to have another cleanup in November and December. So we're going to stay on that park and make sure that it's clean, and the neighbors know how important that park is. There's a bad element that resides there, not as much as before, but there still is an element, and there's some things we think we can do to alleviate that problem, and I hope the city will work with us. And also, that's all I have.
mic was off. So we're on item C, consent agenda. Approval of minutes is requested.
Move to approve.
So we have a motion and a second. Madam City Clerk, let's vote.
Member Madrigal,
Aye.
Member Basua, Chair Ramirez.
Yes,
Motion to approve carries 3-0.
thank you very much. So next item is a report, Oxnard Public Library donation guidelines. We are going to get an update on the donation guidelines. So let's see. I've got to get my thing. Yes. Thank you, Ms. Kimsey.
Good evening, Chair Ramirez and council members. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. My name is Sophia Kimsey, and I'm the city librarian. And, oh, thank you. Just a little bit of light. Thank you. I'm here to present a report to you at the request of the committee on our donation guidelines. Let's see. Okay, just a little bit of background on our donations. The Oxnard Public Library receives about 50,000 pieces of donated material every year. We consider the donations that patrons give us a valuable asset. It's not only valuable for the library, but obviously for the whole community. The residents that support us through donations of material feel that they're contributing to the library, to the city, and they bring everything from books, DVDs, magazines, CDs. So it's quite a bit of different and diverse material that we receive. We do like to encourage the public to give us things that are in excellent condition, because then it's easier for us to actually put them in directly into the collection. A lot of what we receive, if we cannot put it into the collection, it still benefits the library because it goes to our Friends of the Library Foundation. And they use the materials for their book sales. And those book sales turn around and provide money for our programs and public events at all 3 of our library sites. However, donations don't come free. Even though people think they are free, they do require a lot of work on the part of staff, and it does cost for us to actually process the material and put it into the collection. Each piece of material that we add to the collection actually costs about $35 for us to process and label, catalog. So that's why we look for a certain level of material, a certain quality that we're hoping patrons will actually provide to us. Because the library receives so many pieces of material in various conditions, we've established guidelines. And the guidelines are just to help the public to better understand and help educate them on the kinds of things we need. Nevertheless, we try to work directly with the public. So even though we have a pamphlet available, we try to work with them so that they understand what our needs are and what will benefit the collection and the other residents as well. Part of the guidelines also help us to ensure that the materials that come into the library are free of any hazards. And by hazards, I mean things that could damage the rest of the collection or might be a health hazard to the public or other staff as well. By this, I mean sometimes we receive things that are moldy. We receive things that have dust mites in them, silverfish, which are very damaging to the whole collection. They eat our paper. Water damaged, have spiders, and a variety of other things that I think you kind of get my drift. We get a lot of things that come in that people have just maybe had in storage for a while, and they bring them to the library. So we're just trying to encourage and inform the public of, you know, what kinds of things are best for the collection. The guidelines are in place to help the public understand the needs of the library and avoid further damage to the collection. But in order to build a vibrant collection, we encourage our patrons to donate as much as possible. So we do have a pamphlet we give out, as I mentioned. Staff work with patrons who are dropping off large donations. What we try to do is encourage patrons to actually call the library first if they have a large donation. We do have a donation box in the main library of the main library, in the main hallway of the main library, where people can put a couple of items at a time. But if they have more than a couple of items, they're maybe cleaning out a garage, that level of donation, then we encourage them to let us know ahead of time, and we can kind of give them a heads up on the kinds of things that are most beneficial. And of course, the main things that we're looking for are things that are in excellent condition, and books that are published within the last 3 years are really advantageous to the collection because books are very expensive, and because we can't keep everything on the shelf. If you've been in any of the libraries recently, you'll notice that in the last several years, we've managed to fill up most of the shelves. It's really valuable real estate in the collection. We aren't an archives. We are a popular library, so as most public libraries go, we try to make sure that the things that are on the shelf are exciting, interesting, vibrant, colorful, very attractive for our public. Nevertheless, we want to encourage people to donate, and so that's why we try to work one-on-one. Unacceptable items are obviously the things I've already mentioned, but also things that are yellowed, torn, dirty, moldy. We can't accept things that are very old, like old media, such as VHS. We don't really use VHS anymore too much, or audio cassettes, because the media has changed and people don't tend to have that kind of technology in their homes anymore. So again, the guidelines are there to help educate the public and make sure we get the best things into the collection. And let's see. We just want to say again that donations are there to augment the collection. It's a positive way for the public to feel like they've contributed. When someone does contribute by a donation, it's also a tax write-off for them. So we do provide them with a receipt, and they're able to use that in their taxes as well. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Councilman Madrigal.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Sure.
Actually, I was the one who pushed to go over the guidelines, reason being slide number 4. My one and only issue with the whole thing has always been books with publication date within the last 3 years. I think that is very restrictive and ultimately very hard, because I believe there's a lot of good books that have been published on dates that have been over the last 3 years. I think that the publication date should be changed, and that's the whole reason why I asked for this. There's many books that kids read in school that, you know, if they lost their copy and they don't have money to pay for the book, where would they go to read the book? The library. And if it's not offered there, then, you know, they're out of luck. They have to pay. I know the school district, public schools, they would have to pay for the book, meaning that there's a extra charge for them. If they go to a private school, they're paying for the book. Some kids can't afford that. So the easiest way for them to go is to a library. And if they don't have, for example, you know, a Harry Potter series, a C.S. Lewis series, then it's very hard because those books were published such a long time ago. And, you know, I've gone to the Colonial Library and I know it's very full. It's very hard to place any books there at all. I've been to the Oxnard Library right here. And yes, if you go to second floor, there's plenty different places where books may be added in the nonfiction area. I've never walked into the South Oxnard Library, but from what I've been told by others is that there's plenty of room there. So, I think this is very restrictive, and ultimately, yes, I understand people go for DVDs, books, magazines, other types of stuff, but ultimately the main point of a library is a book, and I think it's just too restrictive for us.
Thank you. Just to respond to that, they are guidelines, so our staff should not be adhering to them strictly. We do accept other things because, as you mentioned, there are classics that we always need on the shelf. There are things that are definitely older than 3 years. So the guidelines are in place to just help the public kind of understand that the most beneficial things are things that are newer. However, we would not want, as you said, to be so restrictive that we would just not have, receive something that could be of help to the collection. Our staff does know what the public is reading fairly well, so they have a good idea of the kinds of things that would definitely be added, or that the Friends of the Library can also sell as well. So I do appreciate that comment. We do also review the guidelines periodically, and we want to make sure that they meet the needs of the community.
No, yeah, because this summer actually I dropped off books. That's the whole reason I dropped off the books, and I picked up a brochure, and I knew most of the books were over 3 years old, but I had already dropped them off, so I thought, I just pretty much left trash for them because they're going to throw them away or get rid of them by other means. And, that was like my whole issue with this, because technically, like a lot of people are just going to go off, 3 years, sorry, like I'll take my books back.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say they were trashed, but I would say that, they probably benefited us either within the library, or we were able to give them to the Friends for the community to purchase as, through a book sale. We do actually receive a lot of things that are very much outside of the guidelines, that are things that are moldy, torn, things like that do end up in recycle. But we try to add as much to the collection as we possibly can, because we feel that benefits the community. And if somebody has read it in the community, then most likely someone else is going to try to read it as well. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman?
Thank you for the presentation. That was very informative.
Thank you.
Maybe, to go off what Councilmember Madrigal said, maybe we can put something on the pamphlet that says that we'll take books that are a little bit older, and it's at the discretion of staff, whether or not they keep them or not, just so people maybe understand that you're giving a donation, but possibly if it, doesn't fit your need, it might be donated to Friends of the Library, or if it's in bad condition, it's going to go to the recycle bin.
Okay.
Thank you. That was very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we don't seem to have any public comments on this. Oh, all right. Well, Ms. Gonzalez, Miller Gonzalez will speak. I'll let you speak, and then I don't think you filled out a card for this, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so you can fill one out after. Thank you.
My husband, he had donated a whole bunch of books when his wife passed away, and they were in good condition. It was Life book, Life magazines. They were really good condition, and the library turned them away. And they were very good, a lot of good books that the kids would have loved to read. And he had concerns about why is the library, turning away people if they want to donate really good books. What are they doing? What kind, only 3 years old? There's a lot of good books that the kids can be able to use.
Thank you.
So I do.
So I'll say a couple things, because actually my sister did a master's thesis on archives and accepting books that are, they really are a cost. So I really appreciate what you said, because the books look free, the materials look free, but it does cost to properly archive them, take care of them, and make sure that they don't damage the rest of the collection. But I would agree with my colleagues here that there are some books that I have, and maybe when the time comes, I'd like to donate to the library. They're classics, they're in good shape. They may be even monetarily valuable, maybe. So I think that as long as you're using your staff's good judgment to decide what something is. Clearly the photo indicates somebody was just getting rid of their trash. I mean, I can't imagine what they were thinking, that these were usable, or that you had the time or resources, the staff had the time or resources to fix things that were water damaged and torn. That's, I don't understand why somebody would do that to you. I do think that today I do visit frequently the gift store. I was there today, spent a bit of money. They have excellent gifts. If you're thinking of, just for the general public, if you're thinking about a gift for someone for a birthday or special occasion, that is the place to go. We have great buyers who have a very good eye, very good price for things, and they have a very excellent selection of books that are, looks like they've been recycled a lot, but you know, they're very affordable and you can take it home and not worry about paying a fine because you took too long to read it. So I do appreciate what you're saying. What is the status of the library getting volunteers beyond the Friends of Library gift store?
Sure. We're constantly recruiting for volunteers at all different levels to help us assist us with all kinds of things. The Friends of the Library are always looking for volunteers. The gift shop is one place where they have volunteers. The other group that the Friends of the Library work with are called our bookies, and they don't take bets, but they do process all of our donated material that they eventually put into book sales. And then we also use volunteers that help in the library. They actually clean the books in the collection. They help with, we have what we call volunteens who help in our computer lab. We have volunteers who help in our homework center with tutoring. We have volunteers who also help with our literacy program with adult tutoring. So we have a variety of ways we can use volunteers. And if people have special skills, we can usually find a way to put them to work if they want to work in a nice, quiet environment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, I know that we've made some cuts all over the city, as we heard from parks and maintenance, as well as library. We'd like to see it more fully funded when we're in better financial shape. But in the meantime, if volunteers can help, that's really great. So any other questions from my colleagues here? No. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the report.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kimsey. We're going to go on to the next report, and I believe that's, is that Mr. Harrison? Oh, is that you? Okay, thank you. Colonial Branch Library fundraising.
Yes.
I had asked for an update.
Sure. So this is our update for the Colonial Branch fundraising. I'm very pleased to bring this to your attention because I think that this is a very positive community endeavor. Just to do a little bit of background on the Colonial Library, it's been in existence since 1978, and I don't think a lot of people realize how long it's been at that location. But it has been in the multipurpose center at the Colonia, in the Colonia community for many, many years. We're open on Monday through Thursday from 12 to 6 every day. I'm sorry, Monday through Thursday. The collection is very vibrant. As Councilman Madrigal said, you can hardly fit a book on the shelf in that little tiny room. It is a very small room, but the collection is amazing. We also offer high-speed internet at at that location, as well as our other 2 branches. It is the fastest internet in the city. So we have very good resources in our libraries, and Colonial Library is definitely a place where people can find great things. We also offer year-round programming, story time, and of course staff that is available to assist patrons. So there is no dearth of services there. Just because it is a smaller library doesn't mean that we have cut anything that we would not have at one of our other branches. As you know, during this last budget cycle, we did address the possibility of closing the Colonia Branch Library. And the community really, really came together, which was so heartwarming. And not only did the community come together, but the staff, the city staff, it was amazing to see everyone just work together in a true community spirit to do some fundraising to actually provide for the library. The funding that was needed for the library was not to fund the entire library, but it was primarily to fund the area that we didn't have the funding for, which was for our extra help. We have 2 people who work in that library. One is a librarian. They are there all of the hours that we're open. And then we have an extra help staff member who does our book checkout, who shelves the materials, and assists patrons with basic checkout and check-in. That was the position that we could not, we didn't have any funding for. So we were raising about $27,000 for that. And the way it was done was, as you can see on this slide, there was a grassroots effort that started off with Stay Classy. They raised about a little over $1,600. The Friends of the Library received donations from just all over the community once the word got out. They raised a little over $6,000. The Oxnard Police Department was so generous to us. They included us in on so many of their events, their Coffee with a Cop at a couple of different locations, and people came out in droves. I mean, I was just so impressed to see the community come out and just drop cash to support the library. We've also been able to acquire through the county about $10,000 through the probation department. And we'll be receiving that in quarterly installments. And we'll be working with the probation department to help provide some youth at risk programming at the Colonia. So we'll be able to use this money for the needs that we have there, which is for our temp labor, but we'll also be focusing on some youth at risk programming with the funding that they've provided as well. The goal, as I said, was about $27,000. We received in community fundraising almost $15,000, $14,771, $10,000 from the county. That came to a little over $24,000. The Housing Authority has also collaborated with us, and they will be providing another $6,000. That actually takes us over the $27,000, and we now have about $3,700 in excess. We will be setting that aside in our Friends of the Library account, and that will be earmarked solely for the Colonial Library. So we will be either using that for next year's funding, or somehow it will be specifically for Colonia. I feel strongly that everything that we've raised is the community wants it to go to Colonia, and that's where the funding will go. So we will guard that because we feel like we've been entrusted with the public who have so generously donated to us. So this is basically the report. We're just very excited to be able to tell you that we have an awesome community, and they are very supportive, not only of the library, but of so many things. And I think it just shows the caring spirit of our community, and we're just excited to be able to carry on services there. Just one more note, we are continuing to work on fundraising, so even though we've raised this amount of money, we're looking at trying to sustain the library for the next several fiscal years, and we'll be looking for other ways of doing fundraising. Of course, we're continuing to work with our friends of the library. We're looking for grant opportunities. We'll be working with the Housing Authority, CDBG money. Any support that the community can give us, if they earmark funding for the Colonia, it will be set aside for that project.
Just a quick question. How would they get it to the library? Would they make it to the Friends of the Library?
Yes, they can make checks out to the Friends of the Library. They can also go onto our website, and there's a PayPal button, and they can earmark that for the Colonial Library as well. They can walk into any library and give cash and let us know that it's for Colonia, and we'll make notes of that as well. We're keeping spreadsheets. We're being very diligent about making sure that the community's desires are fully reflected in this money. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Madrigal, do you have questions?
Thank you for the presentation. I know it's been a busy, probably about 5 months in fundraising. So thank you, and thank you to everyone who's helped out either with money or more importantly with their time, because that's always probably the hardest part. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman?
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned that you are already trying to fundraise for the next fiscal years, so we anticipate that we will need this funding moving forward.
Yes, as she mentioned, the cuts were to the temporary labor item, and unless there's new money coming in, and last year with the budget, we didn't cut the full 9 million, so those cuts would remain in effect, and that's kind of our new starting base, and then any other further cuts from that. So it wasn't a one-time cut from their budget for the temporary labor, and I think it was a librarian position as well, or just temporary
The
labor.
previous year, we also lost our permanent librarian at that location. So currently, we're actually rotating staff, our librarian staff there. So all of our locations are tight on staff. So, yeah, but we're making it work.
Okay, thank you. I would just like to ask that we continue to speak about this, especially out in the community, because before we know it, July is going to be here, and we are not going to have any money again. So thank you for the efforts, and if there's any events or anything going on, hopefully we can use our city website to promote it and just continue to talk about our needs for the library. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll say, I worked at the Self-Help Center of the Court for 9 years, and the place I took breaks was in the library, and I got to know Pam Wood, who was a librarian. It was just a lovely little refuge in that area, and I'm glad it continues to be there. I hope that we can find some grant money as well. It's very important. I always say that the library is part of our public safety.
Yes.
People have a place to go and learn things and have access to computers, and just a great place to spend time. So I want to thank you for your efforts, and let's keep talking up fundraising somehow, some way.
We will.
So again, June will be here before we know it. It looks like it's almost Christmas too, so time's speeding up on us. Thank you very much for
You're
your
welcome.
report.
Thank
you. So let's see. That is the end of our scheduled reports. The next is items for future agendas. Councilman?
I had something on top of my head.
We'll come back to you
Okay,
while you
please.
find it in your head. Councilwoman Basua? Okay, well, I would like to I think we do need a report on the status of PAC. I don't know if I can ask you that now.
Yes, so I was actually going to say, your next meeting, November 12th, we anticipate bringing a draft agreement for the selected operator. We are currently in negotiations for that operator, so we would be bringing that for recommendation from this committee to the full council at either their December 3rd. There's one more meeting after that, but that is the last committee meeting to get an agreement before council before the end of the fiscal year. So at the 12th, we might not have a complete agreement, but at least items that we can bring forward to get feedback from this committee to then have a full discussion at council.
Okay.
I remember.
Okay.
I know I previously spoke with the city manager about this. This came up at a neighborhood meeting, possibly looking into some sort of ordinance concerning memorials left out on public property.
And with the scope of that report that you're looking for, to just ask what our current policy is, or?
I believe we don't have a particular, or do we have a particular?
We don't have an ordinance, but we can come with examples, and if that's what you're looking for, just what do we do today?
Well, not necessarily what we do, but what can we do in the
Okay.
future, because it's very, I don't think there's anything set, so it varies depending on the place in the city.
Okay. More? Do you have more? Okay. So the other is the possibility of volunteers for the park. And I'd asked Mr. Zaragoza what the status was of waivers, so people in the community could actually get out there and do what they're doing already without a waiver, apparently. And thank you for doing that. But can you say?
Yeah, so our office is actually looking at a more kind of comprehensive volunteer program right now, so we can come back with the status of that at the next meeting.
Okay, very good.
We can.
Okay, and is the tree planting, the fruit tree planting part of our charter here? Would you say? Could I get a report on that next or in the future?
I'll have to check if that was going to the Public Works or if it was coming to this item. I actually think it's in the Public Works Committee, but that's not to say that we can't just have a comment under the
That would be
report
good.
or forward that on. About specifically the tree program that we just
Yeah,
did?
how it's going.
Okay.
And who's got, do we have all the trees already passed out? And there's a lot of
Just an update and
interest
status.
in this, not just in our city and everywhere. And I think it's going to catch fire. So if that's the last item and there's nothing more, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening.